The stars looked different from the viewport of the HSS Retribution. Captain Sarah Chen had seen countless stellar configurations during her 15 years of service in the human Space Force, but the unfamiliar constellations of the Orion Arm's outer reaches still managed to unsettle her. This far from Earth, everything felt alien. The thought almost made her laugh. After all, they were hunting aliens. Contact approaching, Captain. Council signature confirmed. Lieutenant Rivera's voice cut through the bridge's tense silence. Vanguard-class patrol ship, bearing 173 Mark IV. Chen nodded, her face betraying nothing of the storm brewing inside her. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council had declared humanity a destabilizing influence in the sector. 3 months ago, they'd imposed sanctions that crippled Earth's colonies. 1 month ago, they'd fired on an unarmed human settlement on Proxima Centauri, killing 1,200 civilians. Battle stations, Chen ordered, her voice steel. Weapons hot, but hold fire until my command. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as the crew responded. The Retribution wasn't just any battleship. It was humanity's answer to the Council's technological superiority. What humans lacked in advanced tech, they made up for in sheer ingenuity and adaptability. The Council had never faced a species quite like them before. "They're hailing us, Captain," Communications Officer Paddle reported, fingers dancing across his console. On screen, the alien that appeared on the main display had the typical Varlian features: iridescent scales, 6 eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern, and the characteristic mandibles that clicked when they spoke. This one wore the elaborate collar of a council emissary. Human vessel, the Varlian's translator rendered in a flat, artificial tone. "You have entered restricted space as defined by Galactic Council Decree 77-29A. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Chen's lips quirked in a barely perceptible smile. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the HSS Retribution. We're on a peaceful mission of scientific exploration." A blatant lie. The Retribution carried enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. The Council knew it. Chen knew it. This dance of diplomacy was merely the prelude to what would come next. "Our scans indicate military-grade weapon systems and shielding inconsistent with scientific exploration," the emissary countered. "Power down immediately or face consequences." Chief Engineer Takahashi leaned toward Chen from his station. "Captain, they're scanning us with active sensors. They're trying to get a read on our new phase shield technology." The phase shield was humanity's ace. Developed in secret after reverse engineering a damaged council vessel, it operated on principles the aliens believed beyond human comprehension. For once, humanity had the technological edge. However slight. "Jam their scanners," Chen ordered, politely. Takahashi grinned and tapped a sequence into his console. The sophisticated jamming system wouldn't prevent the council ship from scanning them entirely, but it would feed them just enough garbage data to make any conclusions useless. The Varlian's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Your interference with council operations is a direct violation of." "Strange," Chen interrupted. "We're experiencing some technical difficulties with our communications array. Perhaps it's interference from your scanning equipment." Admiral Jackson had been clear when he'd assigned Chen this mission. Provoke if necessary, but let the council fire first. Earth needed the moral high ground in what was to come. Strategic Command has identified this region as the location of a council listening post. Lieutenant Commander Ortiz, the tactical officer, murmured. "If intelligence is correct, it's one of their primary surveillance installations monitoring human space." Chen nodded almost imperceptibly. "And that patrol ship just confirmed it for us." "Captain," Rivera called out, voice tight. 2 more contacts emerging from the nebula. Heavy cruiser classification. So the Varlian patrol ship had been bait, meant to delay them until reinforcements arrived. A trap. Chen allowed herself a small smile. She'd been counting on it. "Sir," Ortiz said, "they're charging weapons. Defensive posture only," Chen instructed. Let them make the first move. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what was at stake. After the Proxima Centauri massacre, Earth's colonies had united behind a single purpose: to show the Council that humans wouldn't be bullied, wouldn't be controlled, and certainly wouldn't be exterminated. The decades of trying to earn a place at the galactic table through diplomacy had ended in blood. Now humanity would earn respect through the only language the Council seemed to understand. Multiple targeting locks detected, Rivera announced. They're targeting our engines. Chen straightened in her command chair. Shield geometry reconfigured for maximum engine protection. Divert auxiliary power to aft shields. The first salvo from the Council ships flash across space. Energy weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. The Council wanted the Retribution intact, likely to study human technology. The phase shields absorbed the impact, redistributing the energy harmlessly. No damage, Takahashi reported, unable to keep the pride from his voice. Shields holding at 97%. The Council ships fired again, more aggressively this time. The Retribution shuddered slightly under the impact. Return fire, Chen ordered. Targeting sensors and weapons only. Let's show them what we're capable of before we hit anything vital. The Retribution's main batteries roared to life, unleashing precisely calibrated energy beams that sliced through the patrol ship's defenses like they weren't even there. On the tactical display, Chen watched as the enemy vessel's weapon systems went dark. Direct hit, Ortiz confirmed. Their primary weapons array is offline. The Council cruisers adjusted their attack pattern, clearly surprised by the effectiveness of human weapons technology. They'd underestimated humanity. Again, Chen leaned forward. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies, translating into all Council languages. Patel nodded, signaling when the channel was open. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the HSS Retribution. We have disabled your escort vessel without destroying it, demonstrating both our capabilities and our restraint. The next shots will not be so merciful. You have attacked a human vessel unprovoked. Withdraw now, or what happens next will be reported back to your Council as a demonstration of what happens when you threaten human lives. There was a long pause. Chen could almost imagine the frantic communications between the Council ships as they reassessed their strategy. Captain, Rivera's voice was quiet but urgent. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive energy signature from the nearby asteroid field. I think we found their listening post, and it's powering up something big. Chen's eyes narrowed as the tactical display updated. The energy readings were off the scale. All hands, brace for impact, she commanded. Helm, evasive pattern delta. Weapons, target that asteroid installation and prepare to fire everything we've got. As the Retribution banked hard to port, the darkness of space before them lit up with approaching energy surges, a weapon unlike anything they'd encountered in previous engagements with Council forces. Whatever happened in the next few moments would determine whether humanity would continue to be seen as an upstart species to be controlled, or a force the Galactic Council would learn to fear. The battle for humanity's future had begun. The massive energy wave struck the Retribution with such force that even the advanced inertial dampeners couldn't fully compensate. Chen gripped her command chair as the bridge trembled violently around her. Warning indicators flashed across every console. Damage report. She shouted over the blaring alarms. Takahashi's fingers flew across his station. Phase shields down to 63% from a single hit. Whatever that weapon is, it's like nothing in our database. It's some kind of graviton-based artillery, Rivera said, eyes wide as she analyzed the sensor readings. They're warping space-time itself to deliver the impact. Chen had seen the classified reports from intelligence about Council weapons development, but nothing had suggested they'd perfected this technology. The asteroid base wasn't just a listening post. It was a weapons testing facility on their doorstep. Ortiz, what's our weapons status? All systems operational, Captain. Targeting solutions ready for both the cruisers and the asteroid base. Chen took a deep breath. She trained for 15 years for moments like this. The weight of command had never felt heavier. 10 years ago, humanity had been welcomed into the galactic community with cautious optimism. The council races, primarily the Varlians, Nephtheri, and Zoltan Collective, had presented themselves as mentors, guiding Earth through its first steps into interstellar politics. They'd offered technology, trade agreements, and cultural exchange. What they hadn't mentioned was the invisible ceiling they'd placed over human advancement. When Earth's colonies began developing their own innovations rather than following the prescribed technological path laid out by the Council, the relationship had soured rapidly. "They're charging for another shot," Rivera warned. "Helm, evasive pattern Omega-6, Chen ordered. Tactical, target their weapon emplacements with precision strikes. I want that base crippled, not destroyed." The Retribution lurched sideways as the helmsman executed the maneuver. Chen watched on the tactical display as the massive council weapon discharged again, the energy wave barely missing their starboard side. "Return fire," she commanded. The human battleship's main cannons unleashed a devastating barrage, specially calibrated to penetrate the asteroid's defensive systems. On the view screen, Chen watched with grim satisfaction as the energy beams struck with surgical precision, creating a series of explosions across the base's surface. "Direct hits on weapon emplacements, Alpha and Charlie," Ortiz reported. "Their main gun is temporarily disabled." The Council cruisers changed formation, moving to protect the damaged base while continuing to fire on the Retribution. Their tactics were textbook, exactly what Chen had expected. 3 years ago, she'd been assigned as a military observer to the Council's prestigious war college on Nephthar Prime. Officially, she was there as part of a cultural exchange. Unofficially, she was there to study Council battle tactics. What she'd learned had changed her understanding of the galactic powers completely. "The Council ships are moving into a pincer formation," Rivera noted, confirming Chen's prediction. "Perfect," Chen said quietly. "Execute Operation Trojan." Patel nodded and sent the encrypted command. Seconds later, 6 small objects detached from the Retribution's hull, their minimal energy signatures barely registering on sensors. These were humanity's latest innovation, autonomous combat drones equipped with the same phase shield technology that protected the battleship. "The Council doesn't know about the drones," Chen explained to her bridge crew. "They're expecting us to follow conventional engagement protocols because that's what they taught us at their war college." Lieutenant Rivera smiled grimly. "But they never taught us everything." "Exactly," Chen replied. "And they never expected us to learn so quickly or adapt their own technology into something new." The invisible drones silently approached the Council cruisers while the Retribution continued to engage them directly, drawing their attention and fire. This was the advantage of being underestimated. The Council believed they knew the full extent of human capabilities. "Dr. Adams, what's the status of the quantum beacon?" Chen asked, turning to the science officer who had been quietly working at her station. Adams looked up from her console. "Ready to deploy on your command, Captain." The quantum beacon was the true purpose of their mission, a device designed to expose the Council's secret communication network that spanned the sector. For years, the Council had maintained information supremacy by controlling what knowledge reached which species. Humanity had played along, appearing to accept their restricted access, while secretly working to crack the system. "The cruisers are in position," Ortiz reported. "Drones, standing by." Chen nodded. "Execute." The 6 drones simultaneously activated their weapon systems, catching the Council ships in a surprise attack from multiple vectors. Confusion erupted as the Varlian commanders tried to identify the new threat while still engaging the Retribution. "Their shields are fluctuating," Takahashi reported, excitement creeping into his usually calm voice. "The drone attacks are creating harmonic disruptions exactly as Dr. Adams predicted." Chen turned to the science officer. "Now, Doctor, deploy the beacon." Adams pressed a sequence of commands, and from the Retribution's ventral bay, a small probe launched, accelerating rapidly toward the asteroid base. It penetrated the facility's weakened defenses before anyone could react. "Beacon is active," Adams confirmed. "Data acquisition has begun." On a secondary screen, Chen watched as the quantum beacon began its work, tapping into the Council's secure network and extracting the information Earth so desperately needed: the locations of all Council military installations in human space, their fleet movements, and most importantly, their plans for Earth's future. The Admiral's words echoed in Chen's mind from her final briefing. "The Council plans to contain us, Captain. They see our potential, and it terrifies them. We need to know exactly what we're up against." The bridge rocked again as one of the Council cruisers scored a direct hit on their port side. "Shields holding at 47%, Takahashi reported. "That last hit damaged power distribution to decks 12 through 15. Medical teams responding to casualties," Paddle added, relaying reports from throughout the ship. Chen felt a pang of guilt for the injuries her crew was sustaining, but stayed focused on the mission. How much longer for the beacon to complete its download? 3 minutes, Captain, Adams replied, her eyes fixed on her monitor. "The Council's database is massive. We're prioritizing military and strategic data. The tactical situation was deteriorating. The Council commanders had identified the drones and adapted their defense strategy. The element of surprise was gone." "Captain," Rivera's voice was tight with tension. "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple hyperspace signatures approaching our position. Council reinforcements, at least 5 ships, destroyer class or larger." Chen's mind raced through the possibilities. The Retribution could potentially handle the current threat, but not with Council destroyers entering the fight. Yet they couldn't leave without the beacon's data. "How many Council ships can we engage and still have a viable escape route?" she asked Ortiz. 3 destroyers maximum, Captain, and that's assuming we can withdraw before taking critical damage." Chen nodded, making her decision. "Helm, plot a course that keeps us within range of the beacon, but maximizes our defensive position. Tactical, focus fire on the lead cruiser. Let's reduce the odds before their reinforcements arrive." As the Retribution changed position, unleashing another barrage that tore through the first Council cruiser's engine section, Chen reflected on humanity's journey to this moment. The Council had believed that by sharing only selected technologies, they could control humanity's development and keep Earth dependent on their guidance. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's greatest strength, the ability to take pieces of knowledge and connect them in ways the Council races never imagined. 90 seconds until beacon data transfer is complete, Adams announced. The view screen showed the approaching Council reinforcements, their massive forms emerging from hyperspace like predators sensing blood in the water. The next minute and a half would determine whether humanity gained the intelligence needed to protect itself, or whether the Retribution would become just another failed attempt to break free from the Council's control. The ship shuddered again under enemy fire, and Chen steeled herself for what was to come. The real battle was just beginning. The first of the Council destroyers entered weapons range, its sleek, predatory form dwarfing even the cruisers they'd been fighting. Chen recognized the design from classified intelligence briefings, a Zoltan Imperative class, the backbone of the Council's rapid response fleet. The other 4 ships weren't far behind. "Beacon data at 78%, Adams reported, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. 1 minute remaining. Chen tapped her console, bringing up a tactical overlay. "Ortiz, target these coordinates on the asteroid base." She highlighted several points near the facility's power core, just enough to create a distraction without destroying the beacon. Captain. Targeting solutions locked. The Retribution shuddered as another graviton wave struck them, this one from the lead destroyer. "Shields at 32%, Takahashi called out. "We've lost stabilizers on deck 9 through 11. Emergency bulkheads engage." Chen gripped her armrests tighter. "Fire." The Retribution's cannons unleashed a precisely calculated barrage against the asteroid base, creating a cascade of secondary explosions that ripped through its outer defenses. On her tactical display, Chen watched as the council ships hesitated, clearly torn between protecting their valuable installation and destroying the human intruder. "It's working," Rivera said. "Two destroyers are breaking formation to defend the base." Chen allowed herself a grim smile. "That's what we needed. Helm, adjust course 170 Mark III. Get us within drone deployment range of those destroyers." The helmsman's hands flew across the controls, and the massive battleship pivoted with surprising grace, its engines burning hot enough to leave a visible ionization trail. The remaining 3 council vessels adjusted to pursue, exactly as Chen had predicted. Council tactical doctrine prioritized eliminating threats rather than accepting divided forces. "Launch countermeasures," Chen ordered. "Let's give them something else to think about." The Retribution released a cloud of magnetically charged particles designed to confuse enemy targeting systems. It wouldn't buy them much time against Council technology, but time was exactly what they needed. 40 seconds to complete data transfer, Adams reported. Title suddenly straightened at his communication station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission on a secure channel. It's not from the Council ships." Chen frowned. "Source? Unknown." But Patel's eyes widened. "It's using an Earth Fleet authentication code. Priority Alpha. An Earth Fleet vessel in this sector. There weren't supposed to be any other human ships within 3 light years. On my private channel," Chen ordered. A moment later, a familiar voice spoke into her earpiece. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Volkov. Authentication code Sierra Tango 97 Delta. I command the stealth carrier Chimera, currently positioned behind the 3rd moon. We've been monitoring your situation." Chen's pulse quickened. The Chimera was a black project. A ship so classified its existence was known to only a handful of people in the entire Earth fleet. "Admiral, our mission is almost complete," she responded. "But we're facing significant opposition." "Understood, Captain. Chimera is launching strike fighters as we speak. They'll provide you with cover for extraction. Be advised. This operation has been escalated to Omega Protocol." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. Omega Protocol meant only one thing: full authorization to use unrestricted force against the Council. What had changed since her mission began? "Copy that, Admiral. Awaiting your support." Chen turned to her bridge crew, who were watching her expectantly. "We have reinforcements incoming," she announced. "But there's been a change in mission parameters." As if on cue, the tactical display lit up with new contacts. 12 small, fast-moving signatures approaching from the far side of the moon. "Earth fighters detected," Rivera confirmed, a note of disbelief in her voice. "Phantom-class interceptors." Phantom-class, stealth attack craft with experimental gravity drives. Chen had heard rumors about their development, but had never seen them in action. "Beacon data at 97%, Adams called out. On the view screen, the Council destroyers were closing in, their weapons fully charged and targeting systems locked. On the Retribution, they still hadn't detected the Earth fighters rapidly approaching from their blind spot. 25 seconds to fighter intercept, Ortiz reported. "Shields failing on decks 3 through 7, Takahashi added. "One more direct hit and we'll have hull breaches." Chen made her decision. "Divert all non-essential power to shields. Shut down everything we don't need." Throughout the ship, lights dimmed as power was redirected. The temperature on the bridge dropped noticeably as life support systems reduced to minimum levels. "Shields at 41%, Takahashi confirmed. "It's the best we can do." Chen nodded. "It'll have to be enough. Hold position." The lead destroyer fired, its energy beams slicing through space toward the Retribution. Chen counted the seconds, knowing they were cutting it impossibly close. 3, 2, 1. The Earth fighters broke from stealth mode and opened fire simultaneously, catching the Council ships completely by surprise. Advanced missiles struck with pinpoint precision, disrupting the destroyer's shield generators. The energy beams meant for the Retribution went wide, harmlessly dissipating into space. Beacon data transfer complete. Adams shouted, her professional demeanor briefly giving way to exhilaration. Disconnecting and recalling beacon now. On the tactical display, Chen watched as the Earth fighters executed maneuvers that should have been impossible, weaving between Council vessels with uncanny precision. The Phantom's gravity drives allowed them to change direction without the limitations of conventional engines, making them practically untargetable by standard defense systems. "Captain," Patel called urgently. "Incoming transmission from the Council command ship." "Put it through." The view screen shifted to show a Zoltan commander, their crystalline features arranged in what Chen recognized as their species' expression of fury. "Human vessel," the translator rendered in flat tones, "you have committed an act of war against the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Chen straightened in her chair. "This is Captain Chen of the Earth Fleet. Your forces fired on us first, and you are currently in violation of the Treaty of Proxima by operating this weapons platform in neutral space." His Zoltan's crystalline structures flashed with light, a sign of agitation. "You know nothing of Council matters, human. Your species is too primitive to understand the greater galactic balance." "On the contrary," Chen replied calmly, "we understand perfectly, which is why we've just transmitted evidence of your treaty violations and secret military installations to every independent world in the sector." It was a bluff. They hadn't had time to transmit anything yet, but the momentary flash of panic in the Zoltan's features told Chen the lie had hit its mark. "All fighters are engaged with Council vessels," Rivera reported. "The Chimera is moving into position behind the asteroid field." Chen nodded. "Helm, prepare for emergency jump to rendezvous coordinates as soon as the beacon is secure." The ship rocked violently as one of the Council cruisers, damaged but still operational, scored a direct hit on their starboard side. "Hull breach on deck 14. Takahashi shouted over the blaring alarms. "Emergency teams responding." "Beacon secure," Adams confirmed. "Data package ready for transfer to Chimera." Chen took a deep breath. Everything they'd fought for was now contained in that data package, the key to Earth's survival against the Council's plans. "Captain," Rivera's voice cut through her thoughts. "The asteroid base, they're activating some kind of self-destruct sequence." Chen's eyes snapped to the tactical display. Energy readings from the base were spiking to unprecedented levels. "Estimate to detonation," she demanded. Rivera's face went pale. 30 seconds. "And Captain, the blast radius will encompass our position and the Chimera's rendezvous point." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council was willing to sacrifice their own ships and personnel to ensure the humans didn't escape with whatever they discovered. Chen activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. Brace for emergency maneuvers." She turned to her bridge crew, these men and women who had followed her into the heart of enemy territory on faith alone. "We're not dying here today," she stated with absolute conviction. "Tactical, target the base's power core with everything we've got. Helm, the moment we fire, execute emergency jump pattern Theta." Ortiz looked up from his console. "Captain, at this range, the backlash from the explosion will hit us before we can complete the jump sequence." "I know," Chen replied. "That's why we're going to ride the shockwave." Understanding dawned on their faces. It was a desperate plan that violated half a dozen safety protocols, but it was their only chance. 20 seconds to base detonation, Rivera counted down. Chen opened a channel to the Chimera. "Admiral, we're executing emergency protocol Theta. Suggest you withdraw to minimum safe distance immediately." "Negative, Captain," Volkov responded. "Chimera is moving to support position. We'll create a gravity well to help channel the blast wave." Chen felt a surge of gratitude. "Understood, Admiral." 10 seconds, Rivera announced. Chen took one last look at the view screen, at the Council ships scrambling to escape, at the asteroid base beginning to fracture from within as its self-destruct sequence reached critical levels. "Fire all weapons," she commanded. And may Earth forgive us for what comes next. The Retribution's weapons unleashed their full fury, energy beams converging on the asteroid base's power core with devastating precision. The impact was immediate, a blinding flash as containment fields collapsed and the facility's power systems went critical. Jump drive spooling. The helmsman shouted over the chaos. 7 seconds to activation. The tactical display showed the Chimera moving into position, its advanced gravitational systems already beginning to form the corridor that would help channel the explosion's energy behind them instead of through them. It was theoretical physics made desperate reality. The kind of maneuver that got discussed in war colleges but never attempted in actual combat. 5 seconds, Rivera counted down. Chin gripped her chair. All hands, brace for jump. The view screen showed the asteroid base fracturing, cracks of brilliant energy spreading across its surface as the chain reaction reached critical mass. 3, 2, a sudden alarm blared from the science station. "Captain," Adams called out, her voice tight with panic. "I'm detecting a quantum signature within the base's core. It's not a conventional explosion. It's a space-time rupture." Chen's blood ran cold. A space-time rupture was an experimental weapon the Council had been rumored to be developing, capable of tearing a hole in the fabric of reality itself. "Abort jump," Chen commanded. "Emergency reverse thrust. All power to forward shields." The bridge crew responded instantly, their training overriding the natural instinct to flee. The Retribution's engines screamed as they pushed against their own momentum, trying to increase the distance from the impending disaster. "Captain, what about the Chimera?" Platil asked, his eyes wide. "Warned them," Chen began, but her words were cut short as the asteroid base exploded. Except it wasn't an explosion in any conventional sense. The facility seemed to collapse inward for a fraction of a second before a blinding vortex of energy erupted outward. Space itself distorted around the phenomenon, stars visibly bending in the view screen as light warped around the rupture. The shockwave hit the Retribution with tremendous force, knocking several crew members from their stations, despite the inertial dampeners straining at maximum. Consoles sparked and emergency lighting kicked in as primary systems overloaded. "Shields failing," Takahashi reported. "Hull breaches on multiple decks." Chen struggled to see through the chaos on the bridge. The Chimera. Rivera was hunched over her sensor display. "I can't. Something's wrong with the sensors. All readings are distorted." "On screen," Chen ordered. "Visual only." The view screen flickered, struggling to compensate for the radiation storm and spatial distortions. When the image finally stabilized, Chen felt her heart sink. Where the Chimera had been, there was now only a swirling maelstrom of energy, a miniature version of the rupture that had consumed the asteroid base. "No," Chen whispered. "That's not possible." Admiral Volkov and the entire crew of the Chimera, gone in an instant. And with them, Earth's best chance at standing against the Council. The ship rocked again as secondary shockwaves buffeted them. "Captain, we need to withdraw," Ortiz urged. "The spatial distortions are increasing. If we don't leave now, we'll be trapped." Chen forced herself to focus. Grief would have to wait. Status of Council forces: 2 destroyers and 1 cruiser destroyed in the initial blast, Rivera reported, her voice shaky. "The others are in retreat, but they're struggling with the same spatial distortions we are. And our fighters." Seven confirmed returns to their emergency rally point. 5. Unaccounted for. More lives lost. The cost was mounting with every passing second. "Helm, get us out of here," Chen ordered. "Best possible speed to the rally point." The helmsman worked his console, but frowned. "Captain, the engines aren't responding correctly. Something's affecting our propulsion systems." Takahashi was already racing through diagnostics. "It's not mechanical failure. The space-time distortions are interfering with the drive field geometry. Standard navigation is impossible until we clear the affected zone." Chen's mind raced through the limited options. "Can we use the emergency thrusters to push us clear?" Possibly, but it would take hours, and the distortion field appears to be expanding. The science station suddenly emitted a series of urgent beeps. Adams stared at her readings in disbelief. "Captain, I'm detecting a quantum signature matching the chimera. They're not destroyed. They've been displaced. Where?" Adams looked up, her expression a mixture of awe and terror. "Not where, Captain. When? The rupture has created some kind of temporal distortion. Based on these readings, the chimera has been thrown approximately 36 hours into the future." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Time displacement wasn't just theoretical. It was supposed to be impossible with current technology. "Can you confirm that?" Chen demanded. "The readings are consistent with temporal displacement," Adams insisted. "And there's more. The beacon we deployed, its quantum entanglement array, is still operational and sending data. It's detecting massive Council fleet movements throughout the sector. Far more ships than our intelligence suggested they had in the region." Ortiz leaned forward. "That doesn't make sense. We've been monitoring this sector for months. They couldn't have hidden an entire fleet. Unless," Chen said slowly, the horrifying realization dawning on her, "those ships haven't arrived yet." "Adams, could the beacon be picking up fleet movements from the future, from the same time period the chimera was displaced to?" Adams' fingers flew across her console. That would explain the readings. The beacon's quantum entanglement properties might be allowing it to maintain connection across the temporal displacement. "So, we're seeing what happens 36 hours from now," Chen said grimly. "A massive Council fleet converging on this position. Why?" The answer hit her with stark clarity. "They're coming for whatever caused this rupture. The weapon that was in that base, they want to recover it." Rivera's console beeped. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the center of the distortion field. Something's happening." The view screen shifted to show the heart of the space-time rupture. What had been a chaotic swirl of energy was now organizing itself into a distinct pattern, a vortex with a clear structure. "It's stabilizing," Adams whispered. "The rupture is becoming a controlled wormhole." As they watched, a ship emerged from the vortex, sleek, black, and unlike any vessel Chen had ever seen. It didn't match any known Council design, nor any Earth ship configuration. "Scan that vessel," Chen ordered. Adams shook her head in frustration. "Our sensors can barely penetrate the distortion field. All I can tell is that it's using technology far beyond Council standard." The mysterious ship moved purposefully toward the expanding debris field where the asteroid base had been, apparently unaffected by the spatial distortions that were crippling both the Retribution and the remaining Council vessels. "Captain," Patel called out, "we're being hailed." "By that ship." Chen straightened in her chair. On screen. The view screen shifted to show a human face, a man in his 50s with a neatly trimmed beard, wearing what appeared to be an Earth Fleet uniform, but with insignia Chen didn't recognize. "Captain Chen," the man said with a slight smile. "Right on schedule." Chen stared at the stranger. "Identify yourself." "Admiral Thomas Chen, Earth Defense Force. I believe you knew my mother quite well." The bridge fell completely silent. Chen felt as if the deck had dropped out from beneath her feet. "That's not possible," she finally managed. "I don't have children." The man who called himself Thomas Chen smiled patiently. "Not yet, no. But 30 years from now, you will. And your daughter will have a son." He gestured to his ship. "I'm commanding the EDF Paradox, a temporal insertion vessel. We've come back to prevent the Council from recovering the technology in that base." Chen struggled to process what she was hearing. "You're claiming to be from the future, my grandson." "I know this is difficult to accept," Thomas said, "but we don't have much time. The temporal window the rupture created is unstable, and what happens in the next hour will determine the fate of Earth for the next century." He leaned forward, his expression deadly serious. "The Council is about to discover time manipulation technology, Captain. If they recover even fragments of the prototype that was in that base, they'll develop the ability to alter history itself. They'll ensure humanity never becomes a threat to their dominance. The implications were staggering. Chen looked at her bridge crew, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. This went far beyond their mission parameters, beyond anything they had been prepared for. The data from your beacon confirms it, Thomas continued. 36 hours from now, the largest council armada ever assembled will arrive to secure this area. By then, the Chimera will have reappeared, but it won't be enough to stop them. Chen took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly despite the surreal situation. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Thomas Chen's eyes, so disturbingly like her own, hardened with determination. Together, we're going to destroy the Council's future, Captain. And we're going to start right here. Captain Chen stared at the man claiming to be her grandson, searching his face for deception. His eyes held the same determination she saw in the mirror every morning. A genetic legacy she couldn't deny. More importantly, the temporal readings from Adam's station confirmed his ship had indeed emerged from a future time stream. I need specifics, Admiral, Chen said, decision made. What exactly do you need the retribution to do? Thomas' expression relaxed slightly. Your ship carries prototype phase-shifting technology that can be modified to disrupt the temporal field. My engineers can transmit the necessary adjustments to your systems. Shen nodded to Takahashi. Work with them. I want those modifications ready in 15 minutes. Captain, Rivera interrupted. The remaining council ships are regrouping. They're attempting to establish a containment perimeter around the rupture site. On the tactical display, Chen watched as the 3 surviving destroyers and 2 cruisers moved into a pentagonal formation around the debris field, clearly following some predetermined protocol for handling temporal anomalies. They're deploying quantum stabilizers, Thomas explained. Standard Council containment procedure when dealing with space-time incidents. They need to stabilize the area before their recovery teams arrive. Chen's mind raced through tactical options. If we destroy those stabilizers, what happens to the rupture? It will continue to expand uncontrolled for approximately 40 minutes before natural quantum forces cause it to collapse, Thomas replied. Long enough for us to complete our mission, but not long enough for the Council reinforcements to arrive from the future. And the Chimera. If the rupture collapses, Thomas met her eyes directly. The paradox can retrieve them before we seal the temporal corridor. Chen made her decision. Ortiz, target those stabilizers. Rivera, coordinate with the remaining Earth fighters to create a diversion. Captain, Patel called out. The Council command ship is hailing us. Ignore it, Chen ordered. They're just trying to buy time. The bridge hummed with renewed purpose as the crew executed their orders with practiced efficiency. Chen opened a private channel to Thomas. There's something you're not telling me, she said bluntly. What happens after we destroy this technology? What changes in your timeline? Thomas was silent for a moment. History records that the retribution was lost with all hands during this engagement, he finally said. But the data from your beacon made it back to Earth, warning us about the Council's temporal research. That warning is what eventually led to the creation of my ship and this mission. Chen absorbed this with a calmness that surprised even her. So we don't make it home. That was the history I grew up knowing, Thomas admitted. But by coming back, I've already changed the timeline. The future isn't fixed anymore. Before Chen could respond, Takahashi called out from his station. Captain, modifications to the phase shift system are complete. We can now generate a temporal disruption field. What's our weapons status? Chen asked. Main cannons at 63% capacity, Ortiz reported. Targeting solutions ready for all Council stabilizer platforms. Chen opened a channel to the entire ship. All hands, this is the captain. What we do in the next 30 minutes will determine the future of Earth and humanity itself. I know you'll continue to perform your duties with the courage and excellence you've shown throughout this mission. Stand by for combat maneuvers. She turned to her helm officer. Take us in. Full tactical thrust. The Retribution's engines roared to life, pushing against the spatial distortions as the massive battleship maneuvered toward the Council formation. Alongside them, the Paradox moved with uncanny precision, its advanced propulsion system seemingly unaffected by the disturbed spacetime around them. Council vessels are powering weapons, Rivera warned. Let them come, Chen said calmly. Tactical. Execute firing pattern Alpha 7. Target those stabilizer platforms. The Retribution unleashed its firepower, energy beams slicing through the distorted space toward the Council ships. At the same time, the 7 surviving Earth fighters swooped in from multiple vectors, forcing the enemy vessels to divide their attention. Direct hits on 2 stabilizer platforms. Ortiz reported as explosions bloomed silently in space. The Council ships responded immediately, their return fire hammering against the Retribution's weakened shields. The bridge shuddered under the impacts. Shields failing, Takahashi reported. Diverting emergency power. Chen watched the tactical display intently. Status of the temporal disruption field. Charging at 70%. Adams replied. We'll be ready to activate in 40 seconds. A massive blast rocked the ship, throwing several crew members to the deck. Warning klaxons blared as damage reports flooded in. Direct hit to our starboard engine section, Takahashi called out, his hands flying across his console. We're venting atmosphere on decks 17 through 21. Emergency containment failing. Chen gripped her chair. Keep us in the fight. We need to destroy those remaining stabilizers. Captain, Patel interrupted urgently. I'm picking up a signal from within the rupture. It's the Chimera. On screen, Chen ordered. The view screen flickered to show the familiar form of the stealth carrier, emerging partially from the swirling temporal distortion. The ship appeared damaged, its hull scoring suggesting it had faced heavy combat. This is Admiral Volkov, came the strained transmission. Retribution, do you copy? We've engaged Council forces on the other side of this anomaly. They sent a massive fleet back from their future. We can't hold them off much longer. We copy, Admiral, Chen responded. We're working to collapse the rupture. Stand by for extraction. Fomas's voice cut in. Captain, we have a problem. The Paradox's sensors are detecting a quantum surge within the rupture. Something else is coming through. Something big. As if in response to his warning, the temporal distortion expanded suddenly, its swirling energy patterns shifting from blue to crimson. From within its depths emerged a massive vessel, dwarfing even the Council destroyers. Its design was unmistakably Council, but with technological elements Chen had never seen before. That's a Council dreadnought, Thomas said, his voice tight with tension. Timeline designation. 30 years from now. They followed us back. Chen stared at the monstrous ship as it fully materialized from the rupture. A future Council vessel, armed with 30 years of technological advancement beyond their current capabilities. Adams, what's the status of our temporal disruption field? Chen demanded. 93% charged, Captain. 20 seconds to full power. Those 20 seconds suddenly felt like an eternity. The future dreadnought was already powering its weapons, energy readings spiking to levels that made the Retribution's system struggle to even quantify them. Thomas's voice came through urgent but clear. Captain, change of plans. We need to overload the disruption field and detonate it inside the rupture itself. It's the only way to seal the corridor permanently. That would require someone to pilot a ship directly into the anomaly. Chen realized aloud. There was a brief silence before Thomas spoke again. I know. The Paradox was designed for exactly this contingency. Chen understood immediately. No, there has to be another way. There isn't, Thomas replied firmly. My ship can survive long enough to deliver the payload. Yours can't. But you'll be trapped on the other side, in the wrong time, Chen argued. Perhaps, Thomas acknowledged. Or perhaps I'll be erased from existence entirely when the timeline changes. Either way, this is why I came back. Before, Chen could respond. The future dreadnought fired its main weapon, a concentrated beam of what appeared to be pure quantum energy. It struck one of the Council cruisers that had been caught between the dreadnought and the Retribution. The cruiser didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, disintegrated at the subatomic level. Transfer the disruption field technology to the Paradox, Chen ordered, her voice tight. And prepare to retrieve the Chimera as soon as the field is activated. Captain, Rivera called out urgently. The dreadnought is targeting us next. Evasive maneuvers. Chen commanded. All power to engines. The Retribution banked hard, narrowly avoiding the dreadnought's second shot. The energy beam passed within meters of their hull, the near miss alone causing systems throughout the ship to fluctuate wildly. Transfer complete, Takahashi reported. The Paradox has the disruption field technology. Shen opened a channel to Thomas. Admiral, good luck. Thomas's face appeared on the screen one last time, a smile crossing his features. Don't worry, Captain. Remember what you always told me as a child. History isn't written in stone. The Paradox accelerated toward the temporal rupture, executing a series of maneuvers that would have torn any other ship apart. The future dreadnought turned to track it, apparently recognizing the true threat. All fighters, cover the Paradox, Chen ordered. Tactical, target the dreadnought's main weapon array. The Retribution fired everything it had left, along with the remaining Earth fighters. The barrage wasn't enough to seriously damage the advanced vessel, but it disrupted its targeting long enough for the Paradox to reach the edge of the rupture. The Chimera is clear of the anomaly, Rivera reported. They're moving to rendezvous with us. On the view screen, the Paradox plunged into the swirling vortex of the temporal rupture. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse of energy unlike anything Chen had ever seen erupted from within the anomaly. The wave expanded outward, engulfing first the future dreadnought, then the remaining Council ships. Brace for impact, Chen shouted as the wave approached the Retribution. The pulse washed over them, but instead of destruction, the ship experienced a moment of complete stillness. Every system froze briefly, then restarted. On the view screen, the temporal rupture collapsed in on itself, taking the future dreadnought with it. Where the massive anomaly had been, there was now only empty space filled with debris from the destroyed asteroid base. Status report, Chen demanded, breaking the stunned silence on the bridge. Rivera checked her readings. All Council vessels from our time are either destroyed or in retreat. The future dreadnought is gone. No sign of the temporal rupture. And the Paradox? Chen asked quietly, already knowing the answer. Rivera shook her head. No sign, Captain. It was inside the anomaly when it collapsed. Chen closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself one moment to absorb the sacrifice of a man she would never now know. Her grandson from a future that might no longer exist. The Chimera is hailing us, Paddle reported. On screen, Chen ordered. Admiral Volkov appeared, his uniform torn and his face smudged with soot. Captain Chen, what the hell just happened? 1 minute we were fighting a fleet of advanced Council ships from what appeared to be the future, and the next we were back here. It's a long story, Admiral, Chen replied. But the short version is that humanity just won its first temporal war. As the Retribution limped toward rendezvous with the Chimera, Adams called out from her science station. Captain, I'm detecting an unusual quantum signature from within the debris field. It's similar to the Paradox, but not identical. Chen's pulse quickened. On screen. The view screen shifted to show the debris where the temporal rupture had been. Among the fragments of the destroyed asteroid base, a small object tumbled slowly. A black box with markings that matched the Paradox's hull design. Can we retrieve it? Chen asked. Already locked on with a tractor beam. Takahashi confirmed. 20 minutes later, the mysterious box sat on the briefing room table as Chen, Adams, and Takahashi studied it cautiously. It's definitely from the Paradox, Adams confirmed. The quantum signature matches. Can we open it? Chen asked. Takahashi nodded. There's a simple mechanical latch. No signs of booby traps or security measures. Chen reached out and carefully opened the box. Inside was a single data crystal and a handwritten note. She picked up the note, immediately recognizing the handwriting as a variation of her own. It read simply, "History isn't written in stone." T.C. Chen smiled as she handed the data crystal to Adams. Let's see what my grandson thought was important enough to preserve across time itself. Adams inserted the crystal into her tablet. Her eyes widened as she scanned the contents. Captain, this contains complete technical specifications for temporal shielding technology, advanced phase shift weapons, and, she looked up in amazement, detailed strategic assessments of the Council's military capabilities for the next 50 years. Chen understood immediately. Thomas might have sacrificed himself, but he'd ensured humanity would have the tools it needed to face whatever came next. Set course for Earth, she ordered. It's time to show the Council what happens when they underestimate human determination. As the Retribution and Chimera turned toward home, neither their sensors nor the remaining Council ships detected the faint quantum signature at the edge of the debris field, a temporal echo that pulsed briefly before fading away, carrying with it the whisper of possibilities yet to come. The journey back to Earth took 11 days. 11 days of repairs, debriefings, and coming to terms with what they had experienced. The Retribution and Chimera traveled in formation, both ships battered but unbowed. Captain Chen spent most of those days analyzing the data crystal from Thomas, working closely with Adams and the Chimera's science team to understand the technological windfall they'd been given. It's remarkable, Adams said on the 10th day, bleary-eyed from countless hours of study. He didn't just give us weapons technology. There's medical breakthroughs here, new propulsion theories, even cultural analyses of every major Council species. Chen nodded, sipping the last of her cold coffee. He knew exactly what we'd need to not just survive, but thrive. Do you think he survived somehow? Adams asked hesitantly. The quantum echo we detected after the rupture collapsed. Chen had been asking herself the same question. I don't know, but I like to think he found a way. He was my grandson, after all. When they finally arrived in Earth orbit, they were met not with the usual orbital patrol, but with a full honor guard of 12 destroyers and the flagship of the Earth fleet, the ESS Invictus. Admiral Harrison himself had come to escort them home. They've been monitoring our transmissions, Takahashi explained when Chen raised an eyebrow at the reception. The quantum data package we sent ahead made quite an impression. The formal debriefing at Fleet Headquarters in Geneva lasted 3 days. Chen and her senior officers recounted every detail of their encounter, supported by sensor logs and the recovered data. The room fell completely silent when they explained the nature of the temporal technology and the visitor from their own future. So let me be absolutely clear, Fleet Admiral Yamamoto said from the head of the table, her piercing gaze fixed on Chen. You're telling us that the Council was developing technology capable of manipulating time itself, and that your grandson, from 30 years in the future, sacrificed himself to prevent them from acquiring it. That's correct, Admiral, Chen confirmed, and he left us a significant technological advantage in the process. Yamamoto exchanged glances with the other flag officers. Captain, the implications of this are unprecedented. If what you're saying is true, it is true. Admiral Volkov interrupted firmly. My ship and crew experienced it firsthand. We were displaced through time, fought against advanced Council vessels, and witnessed the collapse of the temporal rupture. Every detail in Captain Chen's report is accurate. The room erupted in urgent murmurs until Yamamoto raised a hand for silence. Very well. The next question is, what do we do with this information? That question was answered a week later in a closed session of the United Earth Security Council. Chen stood at attention before the 12 representatives, the weight of her dress uniform unfamiliar after weeks in standard duty attire. The Council has reviewed all evidence and testimonies related to the Retribution incident, Counselor Diaz announced, using the official designation that had been assigned to their mission. We have reached a unanimous decision. Operation Temporal Shield is hereby authorized with immediate effect. Chen felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. Operation Temporal Shield was the comprehensive strategy she had proposed based on Thomas's data, a plan that would fundamentally reshape humanity's position in galactic politics. Captain Chen, in recognition of your exceptional service and unique insight into this situation, you are hereby promoted to the rank of Rear Admiral. You will oversee the implementation of Phase 1 of Operation Temporal Shield, effective immediately. After the session, Admiral Harrison pulled her aside in the corridor. Congratulations, Admiral Chen. Command of the new Cronus Division suits you. Chen smiled tightly. Thank you, sir. Though I'd trade the promotion for more time to prepare, the Council won't remain in the dark forever about what happened. Harrison nodded grimly. Intelligence reports their leadership is in disarray. Losing a secret weapons research station of that magnitude has created quite the power struggle. But you're right. We need to move quickly. 3 months later, Chen stood on the observation deck of the Luna shipyards, watching as construction teams swarmed over the framework of what would become Earth's first dedicated temporal research vessel. The ESS Paradox didn't look like much yet, just a skeleton of advanced alloys and conduits. But it represented humanity's first deliberate step into an entirely new frontier. Hard to believe we've come so far so quickly, said a familiar voice beside her. Chen turned to find Dr. Adams, now Director of Temporal Physics for the Cronus Division. We had a head start, Chen replied, tapping the data tablet she carried everywhere now. And good motivation. Adams nodded toward the shipyard. The Council diplomatic delegation arrives next week. Do you think they suspect what we're building? Undoubtedly, Chen said. But suspicion isn't proof, and we've been careful. As far as they know, we simply recovered some interesting technology from their destroyed listening post, and the temporal aspects. Officially, that never happened. Chen's expression hardened slightly. The Council hasn't come right out and asked about time manipulation technology, which tells me they're not ready to admit they were developing it in the first place. Their conversation was interrupted by Chen's comm unit. Admiral, priority message from Fleet Command. Chen sighed. Go ahead. Long-range sensors have detected a Council diplomatic vessel approaching the Sol system. They're requesting permission to enter Earth orbit, but there's something unusual. They're specifically asking to speak with you, by name. Chen frowned. Me? Yes, Admiral. And they claim they're bringing a message from someone called Thomas. Chen's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at Adams, whose eyes had widened in shock. Acknowledge receipt, Chen said carefully. Inform Fleet Command I'll be returning immediately. After ending the transmission, Chen stared out at the skeletal form of the new paradox. It seems we might get some answers sooner than expected. 24 hours later, Chen waited in the secure diplomatic reception area of Earth Orbital Station 1. The Council vessel had been thoroughly scanned and its small delegation, just 3 Varlians, cleared through multiple security checkpoints. The lead diplomat, identifiable by his ornate collar, approached Chen with formal precision. Admiral Chen, I am High Emissary Kivar of the Galactic Council Diplomatic Corps. Thank you for agreeing to this unusual meeting. You claim to have a message for me, Chen replied, not bothering with diplomatic niceties. From someone named Thomas. Kivar's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of nervousness in Varlians. Indeed, 3 standard days ago, a human male approached our embassy on Centauri Prime. He had no identification, no documentation, and no explanation for how he bypassed our security systems. He gave me this data crystal and said it was vital it reach you personally. The Varlian produced a small container and opened it to reveal a data crystal identical to the one Thomas had left in the black box. Chen accepted it carefully. Did this human give you his name? He identified himself only as Thomas, Kivar replied. He said you would understand the implications. He also asked me to convey a verbal message. Chen felt her pulse quicken. What message? He said, the future isn't fixed. 30 years from now, we don't have to be enemies. Kavar studied Chen with his 6 eyes. Admiral, our intelligence services have been unable to identify this individual in any human database. His appearance at our embassy has caused considerable concern among certain factions of the Council. I can imagine, Chen said neutrally. The Varlian's mandibles clicked again. There are those among us who believe recent events suggest humans possess capabilities beyond what we previously assessed. I have been authorized to open a new diplomatic channel, one focused on genuine cooperation rather than the guided relationship that previously existed. Chen understood perfectly what was happening. The Council had been rattled, first by the destruction of their secret facility, and now by the appearance of a mysterious human who could bypass their security as if it didn't exist. They weren't offering friendship. They were hedging their bets. I'll convey your offer to Earth's diplomatic corps, Chen replied evenly. But understand this, Emissary Kavar, the days of the Council guiding humanity are over. Any future relationship will be one of equals, or it won't exist at all. To her surprise, Kavar bobbed his head in what appeared to be genuine respect. Clarity is appreciated, Admiral. I look forward to a productive dialogue between our peoples. After the Varlians departed, Chen took the data crystal directly to the station's secure analysis lab. With Adams watching anxiously over her shoulder, she inserted it into an isolated system. The crystal contained only a single video file. When Chen played it, Thomas's face appeared on the screen, looking exactly as he had during their encounter. Hello, Captain, or I suppose it's Admiral now. Congratulations on the promotion. He smiled warmly. If you're watching this, then my calculations were correct, and I found a way to survive the collapse of the temporal rupture. Chen felt her throat tighten with emotion. The technical explanation is complex, Thomas continued, but essentially I was able to create a secondary rupture within the primary one, allowing the paradox to slip sideways into an alternate temporal stream. I've emerged approximately 3 months after our encounter, but in a slightly different quantum reality. He leaned forward. I can't return to your timeline without risking another rupture, which would defeat the purpose of my mission. But I wanted you to know that I survived, and that I'm continuing our work from my side of the quantum divide. His expression grew serious. The Council is now aware that humans possess temporal shielding technology, even if they don't understand how we acquired it. This has created a unique opportunity. In my original timeline, the next 30 years saw increasing hostility between humanity and the Council, eventually leading to a devastating war. But you now have the chance to write a different history. Thomas held up a familiar-looking data crystal. This contains strategic assessments of moderate Council factions who might be amenable to genuine partnership with Earth. With the right approach, you can forge alliances within the Council itself, creating a coalition that benefits both humanity and those species who've lived too long under Varlian dominance. He smiled again, and Chen could see her own determination reflected in his eyes. History isn't written in stone, Admiral. It's written by those bold enough to challenge the limits others try to impose. The future is in your hands now. The recording ended, leaving Chen and Adams in stunned silence. He made it. Adams finally whispered, and he's still helping us, even from another reality. Chen nodded slowly, her mind already racing with the implications of this new development. Prepare a secure briefing for the Security Council. Priority Alpha. We need to reassess Operation Temporal Shield in light of this new information. 6 months later, Chen stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned ESS Paradox, named in honor of the ship that had saved humanity's future. As the first captain of Earth's temporal research vessel, she had personally overseen every aspect of its construction, incorporating the advanced technologies Thomas had provided. Final systems check complete, Admiral. Commander Takahashi reported from the engineering station. All systems nominal. "Thank you, Commander," Chen replied. Dr. Adams, status of the temporal shielding. Adams, now serving as the ship's chief science officer, looked up from her console. "Shields operating at full capacity. We're ready for the test jump, Admiral." Chen took a moment to look around the bridge at the hand-picked crew. The best minds Earth had to offer, united in purpose. In the months since the Retribution incident, humanity's position in the galactic community had undergone a remarkable transformation. The Council, uncertain of exactly what capabilities Earth possessed, had adopted a more respectful stance. 3 minor Council species had already reached out through back channels, seeking closer ties with humans independent of Varlian oversight. The future Thomas had warned about, 30 years of increasing hostility leading to devastating war, was already beginning to fade from possibility. A new path was forming, one where humanity stood as equals among the stars rather than subordinates to be controlled. "Helm, take us out," Chen ordered. Standard departure pattern. The Paradox slipped gracefully out of Earth orbit, its advanced engines barely registering on conventional sensors. As they cleared the orbital defense grid, Chen opened a channel to Earth Command. "Earth Command, this is Admiral Chen aboard ESS Paradox. We are clear of orbital perimeter and ready to commence Operation New Dawn. Requesting final authorization." Fleet Admiral Yamamoto's voice came through clearly. "Admiral Chen, this is Earth Command. You are authorized to proceed with Operation New Dawn. Good hunting, and remember, the future is counting on you." Chen smiled at the apt choice of words. "Understood, Earth Command. Paradox out." She turned to her bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we do today opens a new chapter in human history. For the first time, we're not just exploring space, we're exploring time itself." Chen settled into her command chair, thinking of Thomas and the sacrifice he had made to give humanity this chance. Somewhere across the quantum divide, he was continuing his own journey, perhaps looking at the stars and wondering about her too. "Helm, activate temporal drive," she ordered. "Let's make history." The Paradox's engines hummed as the revolutionary drive system engaged. On the view screen, the stars seemed to stretch and bend as space-time folded around them. In a flash of brilliant light, the ship slipped into the temporal stream, carrying humanity's hopes toward a future now unwritten, full of possibility. As Earth vanished behind them, Chen thought of the words that had guided her through the most difficult moments of this journey. Words she had once spoken to a young boy who would grow up to change everything. Words that had come full circle across time itself. History isn't written in stone. It's written by those bold enough to challenge the limits others try to impose. Humanity had faced extinction at the hands of an advanced alien coalition that sought to control them. Instead, they had not only survived but emerged stronger, armed with knowledge from their own future and a newfound determination to forge their own path among the stars. The Council had underestimated humans for the last time. The galaxy would never be the same again.